Grid digitisation fails when it's treated as an IT upgrade, and it succeeds when it reshapes how utilities think, work and lead.
This is Powering the Future, a podcast series brought to you by Smart Grid Forums. One planet, one power grid.
Joining me today is Michael De Vivo, Head of Europe M&A at EA Technology, to unpack what's driven EA's UK success, the lessons European utilities can apply, and what to expect from EA at SGT26 in Paris. Hello, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Mandana. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. So, Michael, before we get started and dive into the questions that I have for you, it'd be great to know a little bit about your role at EA Technology, your profile, and also some of your priorities for the year ahead.
Yeah, sure. So, at EA Technology, I lead the European operations. So, my role is to bring into the continent the experience we have acquired over 6 decades working in the grid edge space. So specifically grid resilience, grid access and asset management. So we are a global company with offices across 4 continents, but it's fair to say that the most scaled and advanced deployments of our technology have happened in the UK, where we currently support 6 over 7 DNOs. So my role is to translate that experience into the European context, not by replicating as it is. We know every DSO is different, every market is shaped by its own regulation and structure, but clear patterns and common challenges emerge in the continent. It was just the case in the UK back a few years ago. So supporting DSOs wherever they are in the digital journey, and helping them in the level of maturity on the digital side.
Right, okay, great. Now, as you say, EA Technology has quite extensive experience with DNOs in the UK. The solutions you talked about around grid resilience, access and asset investment are particularly interesting. And I would say from utilities that I talk to on a daily basis, resilience is a big issue this year. It's really a hot topic on their lips, and I think at SGT26, we're going to find out a lot more about what their expectations and plans are in that area. So how is EA Technology helping utilities with resilience?
Yeah, so let's. So most of our deployment in the grid's resilience is through our technology called VisNet. VisNet is actually through 2 different offerings. One is VisNet monitoring, which provides real-time visibility into fault capacity, network performance via edge-based devices and applications. And then there's the second piece, which is VisNet modeling, which transform the connection journey and accelerate quotes and better planning, etc. So the resilience is more on the VisNet monitoring. So if you go back to let's say 5-6 years ago in the UK was racing against time, just 10 years to make radical progress toward the 2030 climate goals and on the path to net zero 2050. Behind that ambition, it's a massive operational challenge, right? About resilience, etc. So in the UK, it's 250,000 ground-mounted substations, a bit less than 1 million of kilometers of low voltage cables, and 350,000 new connections every single year. So without having a clear visibility and grid edge operations, working blindly does not help for resilience. So we actually help DSOs entering into that digital journey, first capturing data, then integrating them into processes, and then being a bit more effective in the way they actually look at the grid and act on it. So I can actually share some example with some DNOs how we did that.
Oh yes, it would be great to know about perhaps your most successful deployment within the UK. Perhaps could you give us some details of that?
Yeah, so let's take UKPN. UKPN, London region. 5 years ago, LV substation across London were, for the most part, quite dark. When a fault occurred, field crews were dispatched with a minimal set of information. So people were doing their job, but with more and more pressure from penalties, can reach millions if you don't react fast, and the final client impacts that they wanted to minimize. So UKPN did something quite bold. No, they started running a proper proof of value. It's not a pilot for the sake of ticking a box, They really took seriously our technology VisNet against clear criteria, and they start asking questions. Could that technology detect fault early? Could it deliver those 3-4 insights? Could it be fit into our existing operational environment? So pilot 1 was leading to test pilot 2 and then to scale on pilot 3. So it didn't happen into one leap, but in successive waves. And each wave was just telling them something more. So by 2025, in a 5 years time, they scaled from almost nothing to 5,000 secondary substations under monitoring. So they have today an LV team operating in a business as usual mode. So it was really a mindset shift, as critical as the technology side. So today, they predict more than 70% of LV faults coming in 12 months. They have a strong reduction in outages, cutting emergency interventions, and they also managed to have a better CapEx decision envelope, because they are operating with a high level of efficiency at the moment.
Okay, great. Yeah, that sounds like quite a scale up in a relatively short period of time. Is that typical for the customers that you work with, or is that exceptional?
No, it is quite typical, actually. VisNet is a technology that is existing from 2019, 2020. So taking another very, very quick example is with NPG in the Northeast England. In that case, the challenge was not reliability; it was more the volume of new connections. The team was stretched with the limits with EV chargers, heat pumps, PVs, batteries, etc. And every single applications landed on an engineer desk. Each requiring a manual modeling, each one to be more or less bespoke. And so they flipped the model. In just 3 years, NPG rolled out the full self-serve portals, and customer could now check capacity online, generate a quote in few clicks. And now engineers are mainly solving complex edge cases, not doing repetitive tasks 200 times a month, which is better for customers, for planners, for the grid. And today, this modeling is covering 90% of the UK territory in just 3-4 years. So it's quite common. We can go quite fast, but it's a mindset, I think, shift.
Yeah, I think many utilities want to scale up much more quickly right across Europe. I hear this message a lot and questions around what's going to drive this scale up. So in your experience, if you were to transfer some of the experience you've had in the UK to mainland Europe, what do you think, as you say, the mindset comes into it as well? What are some of the learnings that you would transfer across? What are the conditions you would want to get in place in order to ensure this faster scale up?
Yeah, we often, I think it's a natural instinct, but we often think that once the tech works, the job is done. It's sort of feeling that is quite common. But what we have seen is quite the opposite, actually. Implementation is not a technology challenge, it's a leadership challenge generally. So we discussed about UKPN and NPG. They faced challenges. One was more penalties, the other one was more volumes, workloads. But they both started with a proof of value, but crucially, they were not treated like tech experiment. They were not playing a video game or doing another trial. They were really running like decision-making processes. And once the value was clear, they didn't hesitate. And in my experience, that's exactly where most of the pilots die. Not because the tech fails, but just because the confidence doesn't land. And it's quite easy to have, a leader that say, okay, let's trust this pilot, let's do this pilot. But when you want to scale, you need to have the full organization that trusts you. Mm-hmm. And this is where the right level of questions should be asked. Who owned the outcome of the pilot? What if the system missed some things? Who gets blamed for that? Those are the right level of questions that those companies will start asking. And there are actually three common things that, in my view, makes a success to scale from pilots to deployment. The first one is to have a champion. So someone who leads the project. It's not a name on a slide, right? It's just a leader. It's present week after week with clarity, steering the pilot ship, steering the ship through uncertainty, because it's just uncertainty, right? The second one is about KPIs, having the right level of KPIs. It's a business impact KPIs, return of investment, ID, planning acceleration, not tech metrics, that makes less sense. And the final one is the organizational readiness. By the time the exec team gave the green light to move for a trial, the teams were already behaving like the solution was live. So again, it was not about playing another video game. It was really about let's do as if we were working as business as usual. So yeah, those are the three things in our experience makes the difference. So again, not about integrating a tech or a system. It's about redefining the ownership and the trust. And so that's the real transformation.
Yes, and I would say from my observations, some of the breakdown comes around the issue of certainty. So how we get buy-in in uncertain times with uncertain outcomes. What are your views about how leaders can really engage their teams to move towards the goal despite the uncertainty? Because I think engineers in particular like certainty. They like to have tangible outcomes. They want to back something that's 100% going to work out. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable taking a risk. So what would be your advice to those project leaders in terms of aligning their teams and leading them through those uncertainties?
That's a good question. It's a human, reaction to uncertainty, and generally, if you live in a culture that allows you to take that risk, to make a mistake, and to share that uncertainty, that it's easier. It's definitely easier. So it's part of the culture of the company environment and all of that. It makes definitely it helps, and then let's just take some examples. Finland, in my knowledge, Finland are sit on top of a world-class baseline in terms of resiliency. But they are present in all projects. They are always there. There is no need to have a regulation pushing you or something hitting you too much. If you have the right environment and culture to work better, safer, stronger, etc., you generally are pushed to take a risk and make mistakes. But I mean, we understand that in a DSO environment, it's difficult to take risks because you are managing a mission critical environment. But yeah, so it's a really coming from the top generally, from the management. If you install an environment where you can take that risk, it's easier.
Right. Okay, great. Well, finally, Michael, EA Technology are once again going to be present at SGT 26 in Paris. You'll be running a live demo lab. You'll be present in the exhibition area as well. And I'm sure your team will be very involved in all the question and answer sessions at the end of the utility presentations as well. So what can we expect? What will we see from EA Technology? What's new and disruptive for this year?
Yeah, so we will not only showcase products and technologies. Of course, we will show VSNet and all of that, but it's more about us sharing the results, the transformation we have done in the UK. We will try to make it clear that at EA, we don't just offer product and services, but we also offer a digital roadmap for DSOs navigating complexity. So we will probably share some of the initiatives we are launching in Europe. There are two of them, particularly one called Connect Europe, one called Eurolens. Mm-hmm. We strongly believe in knowledge sharing. So those initiatives are about connecting DSOs together, bringing in some UK DNOs that went through those transformations and actually share best practices, enter into a knowledge sharing discussions. We will present those type of initiatives, and and make sure that we are seen as a partner to support DSOs, not just as a tech vendor.
Great. Okay. Well, we're looking forward to welcoming your team again and to seeing what's in store for us this year. Thank you so much for your time and insights today, Michael. And we look forward to seeing you at SGT26 Paris in March.
Thank you, Mandana. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Join us again next time as we unpack another big topic shaping the future of the power grid. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Smart Grid Forums, and to follow us on LinkedIn. Until then, thanks for watching and listening.
This is Powering the Future, a podcast series brought to you by Smart Grid Forums. One planet, one power grid.